Good evening, everyone. We're officially gaveling in and beginning our meeting. This is Cincinnati City Council Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, along with Cincinnati Public School Board. And, you know, we do these joint meetings from time to time. We're thinking about doing them quarterly. We haven't gotten to that schedule yet, but the idea is to talk about issues on which we can collaborate. So I want to welcome everyone here. I hope everyone has an agenda. Let me first turn the meeting over to the president of the CPS board, Ben Lindy.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Kearney. I'll be very brief. I just want to say how wonderful it is to have our colleagues from City Council here at Cincinnati Public Schools. I think there's a very bright future for what these two groups can do together, and I want to say thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. So I will introduce the City Council folks who are here, starting with Council Member Scotty Johnson. Thank you so much. I'll get right back to you. And we also have from our Clerk of Council office, Melissa Autry, and we have Sheila Andrews and Robert Neely. We have Sergeant Kennebrew here. So happy that you're here. And on City Cable, we have Steve Sobel. For speaking, we have Assistant City Manager Virginia Talent, and we will have our Department of Health Director, Dr. Grant Mussman. So, President Lindy.
I wanted to also just offer my thanks to Dr. Moffitt from the school board, who put a lot of work into organizing this meeting. It's not easy to align the schedules for this group of people, and I'm very glad that that's happening. So thank you. I think, Dr. Moffitt, this is probably on your radar anyway, but I think for the school board, we may need a treasurer pro tem and a roll call. Treasurer's here, even better. We need no pro tem. Ms. Wagner, would you call our roll real quick so we can get that for our minutes?
Present. Mr. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Here. Dr. Moffitt?
Here.
Mr. Morosky? Mrs. Weinberg?
Here.
President Lindy?
Here. Thank you.
Who would you like to?
Okay. So thank you so much, Vice Mayor. I appreciate you. And to our President Lindy, I appreciate you too. From the school board, let's recognize the school board members and then our superintendent and our treasurer. At the far right, we have board member Craig, Vice President Brandon Craig. We have board member Carolyn Jones, President Ben Lindy. To the far right, we have board member Mary Weinberg and board member Eve Bolton. We have with us today our superintendent, Ms. Ironetta Wright. I don't know if they can see you, and our treasurer, Jen Wagner. We do have a slew of staff. I'm not as good as our vice mayor in introducing everybody, but we've got tons of our executive leadership team here. Thank you all for being here. And to our board admins, Phyllis and Pat, thank you so much for coordinating. I think we should just start.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Okay. So let's start. The first presentation is by Chris Burkhart, CPS Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Burkhart is going to give us an update on transportation issues. Thank you so much. I should point out we are going to have public comment at the end, so if anyone would like to speak, you will have 2 minutes. Please fill out a yellow speaker's card at the front desk as you enter, and we will call you at the end of the agenda. You may fill these cards out anytime while you're here. Thanks so much.
So hi, I'm Chris Burkhart. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for CPS, and thank you so much for allowing me to spend a couple of minutes to talk about transportation here at CPS. This year, yellow buses on the first day of school all ran, which is a marked improvement over last year. As I started off with CPS last year, during my first week of work, I had to walk into Superintendent Wright's office and say, we need additional 30 buses because we have students who can't get to school. And so this year, we are very proud to be able to say that all 340 of our buses ran for our 1,257 routes that included our AM and PM. As expected on the first day, many of those routes ran slow, but they did run. Additionally, Metro cards were delivered to every campus prior to the first day of school on August 17th. Again, a marked improvement this year over previous years where it took us a week or two for every student to have a Metro card before they started school. We're also making some really substantial changes within transportation. One is this year we have a tiered routing and alignment of school times, not only through CPS schools, but every every charter and non-public school across the city of Cincinnati. This set us up for being able to be more efficient with our routing and able to look at what schools we can pair together to make our routing more efficient. This year, we also set our busing needs in April. Typically, this was something that was done in July, but only gave us about 30 days to get all of our busing vendors up to speed on the needs and the routes. So by doing this in April this past year, gave us a lot of time to not only work with our vendors, work with our contractors to make sure that our bus routes and our bus drivers knew those routes for the first day of school. This year, we also are piloting some combined routes. So two schools that may share a parking lot, for example, it used to be two different buses going in two different directions to pick up students. We've combined those routes to put some more efficiencies together. We've also adjusted our bus stop locations for both safety and efficiency. This year, we brought our call center in-house. It used to be staffed by our vendors, and this year we have made all of those employees CPS employees, so that we can control every aspect of that call center, so we can make sure that we have that CPS touch for every family that's calling into us asking about bus routes and bus changes. Finally, we're really making considered effort to making sure that all of our buses have GPS, and those buses are communicating on a daily basis, so that parents using their MyStop app can look on that app and know where their bus is and how long that bus is going to take to get to their stop. Next slide, please. So we do have some areas for improvement. In between July 10th, when our rollover of student information happens, to August 17th, when the first day of school happened, we had about 1,700, almost 1,800 service requests and 882 changes of service. That's almost 1 in 6 students who ride transportation had a change in their service within that 30 days. So that's challenging for us, but we did, again, route every student on that first day of school. Our current GPS reporting at the time that this slide was put together was 92%. I'm happy to say that we're actually up to 97% of our buses having GPS and transmitting that daily. Also, our on-time percentage, again, at the time that this was put together, our on-time percentage was 46%. Now, that seems awfully low, but I want to give a little perspective to where that number comes from. We route all of our buses to arrive in our campuses 15 minutes before the school day starts. So we really have about a 15-minute window. That's what we're considering on time. If you take that out and substitute the school start time, we're about almost 90% on-time percentage on a daily basis. So it's, again, a marked improvement over last year and where we are going. We still have a lot of work to do. I don't want to stand up here and say that we're perfect. We still have a lot of work to do to get to where we need to go. Finally, next slide, please, Rob. And we just wanted to call out some board policies, some ODE requirements, and some Ohio Revised Code in relation to yellow buses. So the bus ride times for students shall be less than 55 minutes. That is something that we have done this year as well, and we wanted to make sure that every student has a less than 55-minute ride time. The other thing that we also looked at is when we transport students, we want to make sure that we drop them off no more than a half hour before school starts, and pick them up no more than a half hour after the school day ends. And that's something that we really tried to do this year, as well as making sure that we have tiered routes. So as we look at efficiencies for a bus, last year we had a lot of routes that just ran a single route and didn't tier up. This year we looked at tiering those routes together, which created a much better efficiency and actually lowered the amount of buses on the road and bus drivers. As you well know, there's a bus driver shortage that hasn't gone away since COVID, and it's continuing to be a challenge for us to get bus drivers and for our vendors to hire bus drivers. So eliminating the need for those bus drivers actually helps us with our efficiency. Finally, the last item that I wanted to bring to your attention is all yellow bus stops are within 1/2 mile of their residence. And that's something that we are very, very diligent, as I said earlier, making sure that those bus stops are safe and in close proximity. We always want to make sure that they're within a 1/2 mile of the student's home. So that's the presentation. I'll open it for questions. Anyone has any questions?
Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. I'm glad to see things are improving. I just want to congratulate you and CPS and the superintendent on the community engagement that happened last year. I was at one of the sessions, and there were quite a few where you met with community members and teachers and parents and everybody to talk about what the challenges were and to come up with solutions. And so it looks like that's really working. So thank you for that. That was wonderful. So my question, how do the Metro buses factor into all of this?
Yeah, so good question. So last year we opened up Metro buses for 7th and 8th graders. So they actually have the option to ride either yellow bus or Metro, which also helps us even out the need for buses at both of our campuses and through the Metro routes. So it is something that we are continually allowing those 7th and 8th graders to choose, and that is still open at this time.
Okay, that's wonderful. I was going to say at our last Healthy Neighborhood CPS meeting, which has been a while, we talked about transportation, and then Eve Bolton and I met with SORTA, and one of their suggestions was that we have student ambassadors on the bus for the younger students, the 7th and 8th graders, so use 11th and 12th graders. So I just want to say the city is still considering that. We have a program called Career Pathways Initiative where we can actually pay students. And so I know that Kelly Carr, who's working with that from the city, gave me an update, and she said it's still in process. SORTA has offered some training, but it's a matter of recruiting the students. And I think because we did that late in the year, we weren't able to actually get anything going over the summer. So next time we'll give you an update on that. But that's still in process. So thank you for that. I'll open it up to the committee members. Any questions, comments?
Actually, I have a question. Thank you so much for the presentation. I do have a quick question regarding the piloting. How many buses or routes are involved in the piloting that you have going on right now?
So there's 12 schools that are piloting. So it's most of those are charter and non-public schools that we're chartering. There's one CPS school that we are doing the pilot with this year.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Burkhart, for clarification for our public, can you make the distinction between what
I don't think your mic is on.
it's on? My mic is on. You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, I need to pull it closer or talk louder. Okay, sorry. So can you make a distinction between, for our public, what is the difference between a service request and a change of service? I'm assuming a service request means, for example, somebody may not have ever had service and they call in to request that at that time. And change could be like switch routes. Is that okay?
Yeah, so there's a couple of, there's a myriad of reasons, but I'll give you some garden varieties. For example, someone may have used yellow bus or not have used yellow bus last year because parents were driving students to school. So that would be under a service suspension,
Gotcha.
which they would tell us, hey, we don't want to ride the bus anymore. And now they do want to ride the bus. So that would be something that, we would add service to. To your change of service, that could be a deviated stop. So if a parent wants their son or daughter to be dropped off at daycare at the end of the day, that would be a change of service. And or we also have a lot of parents and guardians who maybe have moved over the summer and maybe have forgotten to tell us where they're at. And so we get a lot of those as well. So it could be a myriad of different issues that come up at the last minute.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Lindy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Burkert, I shared this in the meeting that we had earlier on this topic, and I just wanted to thank you and our superintendent and all of the folks who've been working hard on this last year. I know that there's a lot of work you all still want to do to get to every student always getting there on time. I'm particularly proud of the work you all did on this because it took some decision making and there was a real strategy last spring. This is not a situation where people just tried harder or we kept our fingers crossed. This was a series of trade-offs and a real strategy to align start times to lower the number of drivers that we needed. And the early result, at least, indicates that it's working. And I just think that's great leadership. We have lots of issues to figure out to create a great future for all children. But seeing some of the efforts and the clear thinking and the return on those efforts from everybody at CPS, even as we have more we want to do, I think is a real bright spot. So thank you.
Thank you, and hats off to our transportation team who's really taken these challenges and really worked diligently to make this year a success, as well as the greater CPS team. This wasn't done in a vacuum. It takes everybody, so thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Burkhart, thank you so much. We really appreciate your work. That's wonderful. Improvement is always great. I'll turn the next item over to Dr. Moffitt.
So thank you to the CPS team, because I happen to know, just like President Lindy shared, it took a lot of effort on our part. So we heard you all last year, and so this year we've made some substantial changes. We're going to have a presentation from Rebecca Beach regarding Project Connect. This is another area that we talked about in our joint meeting last year, the population of students that are CPS students that are homeless. And so she's going to give us some more information about what CPS is doing.
Okay, good evening. I'm Rebecca Beach, the program manager for Project Connect. I wanted to thank Superintendent Wright and the Cincinnati Public School Board and the City of Cincinnati for allowing me to share information regarding our program with you tonight. So for those of you who don't know, Project Connect is the Cincinnati Public School program serving children and families who are experiencing homelessness. We operate under the federal McKinney-Vento Education Act, which is a federal law requiring school districts to remove educational barriers for students experiencing homelessness. This law became active in 1987, and the Project Connect program was founded in 1996. So the goal of our program is to reduce equity gaps and remove barriers for our students who are in homeless situations. And the program has truly evolved over the last several years. Next slide, please. So I always like to explain the difference between the HUD definition and the McKinney-Vento definition of homelessness, because the McKinney-Vento definition is much broader and allows us to serve more students than the HUD definition. So for educational purposes, homelessness is any student who lacks a fixed, adequate, or permanent nighttime residency. And this includes our students who are doubled up or couch surfing. They may be staying in hotels and motels, or who otherwise do not have stable housing. The HUD definition is more narrow and includes who we typically think of when we think of homelessness, and these are families who are sleeping outside or in places not for human habitat, or who are residing in shelter. So this dichotomy does create some systemic issues, resulting in some of our families not being able to access resources that are funded through HUD-funded agencies, and so we really try to work hard to identify meaningful resources for our students and families who meet the McKinney-Vento definition, but not the HUD definition of homeless. Next slide, please. As everyone in this room knows, homelessness and housing instability have a profound impact on education. So some of the data here is from Schoolhouse Connections. They are a program in Washington, D.C. that kind of houses the educational data regarding homelessness and education. And so I won't go through every statistic, but we do see increased numbers of students with special education plans. And academic achievement is slow during periods of homelessness, and this typically persists and can even worsen if housing stability does not occur. And our national graduation rates are about 20% less for students experiencing homelessness than all students. I will say that is not the case for Cincinnati Public Schools. Over the last several years, we have had pretty good graduation rates above the national average. We've ranged between 75 and 82% for our current year students experiencing homelessness. So those are students who we are working with and have identified as experiencing homelessness. And homelessness is associated with an 87% increased likelihood of dropping out of school because these students are often in survival mode, and so school becomes less and less of a priority for them. So we really try to find ways to keep them connected to school. And so I'll speak a little bit about our services on the next slide. Thank you. So I always say that our program tries to go above the letter of the law. When I began 15 years ago in the program, we used to hand out backpacks and school supplies and uniforms and connect our families to transportation, and all of this was helpful, but we realized pretty quickly that if we don't serve the whole child, they're not going to be successful in the classroom. And so we did open up a resource center 5 years ago, and in this resource center, we have anything that a student can possibly need for school. If we don't have it, we will find a way to get it for them. But we have uniforms, clothing, shoes, hygiene kits, laundry kits, Metro passes, coats. Some additional services that I would like to highlight. We started last year a pilot program with the Free Store Food Bank, where we have families who are able to go online and order food just like you would do if you were ordering from Kroger. We call it the Order Ahead Food Program. And so every 2 weeks, families are able to select the foods that they want, and those food boxes are delivered to our resource center, and we can distribute them from there or deliver them. This has been really helpful for a lot of our families who are unable to access food stamps, such as families who are coming in from other countries and do not have access to Medicaid food stamps and other social services where you need some level of citizenship or permanent residency. We also provide wellness screenings. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we began a partnership with Walton Mobile Primary Care, where we go out to shelters and to other community places such as Casa de Paz. And we have wellness screenings for our students that include vision and hearing and mental health screenings. And so we review those, and any student who needs additional resources, we connect them to resources. And we provide surrogacy services and myriad housing services, which I'll discuss on a later slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also have myriad enrichment opportunities for our students. I will just highlight a couple of them. We know that our schools often have tutoring, and so sometimes our students are not able to stay after school, so we've brought tutoring to our shelters. So we do provide tutoring at the Bethany House, which is our largest family shelter in the area. We have a 6-week summer academic and enrichment program, which is my favorite part of our program, where we bring all of our students on site and they participate in academics, swim lessons, tons of different enrichment opportunities, including Camp Joy. And so that's just a really wonderful program to see, and it allows parents the opportunity to look for housing or jobs or whatever they need to do to try to stabilize their families. We have parent programming, and we've started a new program at the shelters called Kaleidoscope, and this is a kindergarten readiness program where our parents learn to prepare their children for kindergarten through learn and play. And we also have several social and emotional groups for our students. Next slide, please. And so I just wanted to share a few data points. We identified almost 3,500 CPS students experiencing homelessness last school year. This is up quite a bit from past years. Of these students, almost 1,300 were residing in either family shelter or one of the Lighthouse shelters. And 425 of these students were unaccompanied youth. And 175 were unsheltered. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide. So like I mentioned, we are seeing that homelessness is on the rise for many reasons, as I'm sure that everyone in this room is aware of. We do have a lack of affordable housing in Cincinnati at the moment, and so we are getting more and more calls from families who have housing vouchers but just can't find landlords willing to take the vouchers. So between 2016 and 2023, we identified over 1,000 more students during the school year who were experiencing homelessness. And you can see that trend is just continuing to go up. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there is a lack of affordable housing. The Homeless Coalition shared with me that in the late 90s, we had over 5,000 affordable housing units in the city of Cincinnati, and at this time we have under 1,000 units. I know that the city of Cincinnati is working on this and paying a lot of attention to this, and we really appreciate that. We have a very fast-growing housing market. And because of the lack of affordable housing, there's less turnover in shelter. So our families used to be in shelter for an average of 30 days. Last school year, we were averaging around 90-day shelter stays and sometimes even longer. And then we are seeing a large increase in children who are coming here who are separated from their parents at the border. And so they come to Cincinnati and they may stay with a family friend or distant relative. But they are considered unaccompanied youth because they're not in the care of a parent or legal guardian. Next slide, please. So I really wanted to bring your attention to this slide because it's really disturbing. For many years, we did not see children living outside very often. So from 2016 to 2020, you can see we never identified more than 35 students who were considered to be unhoused, meaning they were living outside or in an abandoned building or what we would consider substandard housing. But we saw a huge increase after the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that the pandemic disproportionately impacted our families living in poverty. And it really impacted our families who were on the verge of homelessness. And so over the last few years, we've seen close to 200 students who really have nowhere to go. And that means that they are often living in storage units or in cars or, like I mentioned, abandoned buildings. And so one of the things that we were able to do with our ARP-HCY funds is hire a housing specialist. Next slide, please. Our housing specialist has done a phenomenal job with developing partnerships to be able to house some of our students who are in unhoused situations. Last year, we served 541 students. Last week, we had served 154 students already this year, but that number has increased. Today, when I looked at it, it was about 172 students. And so these are students who we've been able to provide some sort of meaningful housing resource to. And I'll talk a little bit about what some of those resources are. With the ARP-HCY funding, we were able to go into partnership with Upspring Cincinnati and provide up to 3 nights of emergency hotel stays. So these are for our families who are unhoused outside or in cars. We will provide them with up to 3 nights of a hotel stay. And though this is not a long-term solution, it often gives our families just a chance to breathe and figure out their next steps. During the time that they're in the hotel, we work with the shelter cap line and try desperately to get them into shelter. And it often works. But if it doesn't, those families will often find during that time another family member or somebody to stay with, but it does give them an opportunity to regroup. We also have a partnership with Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority where we are able to provide priority housing vouchers for our families. Again, that's not always the answer because sometimes families have a voucher and have a lot of trouble finding housing, but it is helpful. They are moved up to the very top of the waiting list and usually obtain a voucher within 30 to 60 days, which is really quickly. So we were able to provide this service to 273 students last school year, and we have, as of last week, served 57 students in the program this school year. And then, as I mentioned, we have a partnership with the CAP line where we share a document daily with them and we list our families by priority. So our families who are living outside are top priority for getting into shelter, and they work really hard to get our families and students into shelter. And so last year, through this partnership, we were able to get 186 students into shelter. And so far this year, we have already gotten 61 students into shelter. And so we're expecting that number to be a lot higher this year because we're only in September. And so Last Friday, one of our families was interviewed by the New York Times, just talking about her experience because she was a family who had a housing voucher. And she was living in a home where the landlord was just not fixing things and the home was infested. And she left thinking she would get another place quickly and went and stayed with a family member. This was a year and a half ago. And mom had 7 children. She did lose one child, a student at West High, during this time. And so she now has 6 children. And when she came to us, she was living in her car. And so we were able to get her into the hotel. We were then able to get her into shelter. She was in shelter for quite a while and then was no longer able to stay in shelter. And her children were in our summer program. And so we found a shelter in Aurora, Indiana, and mom actually drove every single day to bring her children to our summer program. And she's now staying with her children's father's mother. And it's not a good situation because she's not allowed to use the kitchen. They all have to stay in one room and they have no beds. So we did buy them air mattresses and pillows. But she has found a place and we're really, really hoping that it passes inspection and she's able to get into the place. But just to kind of tell you a little bit about how our housing program is able to impact our families. During the summer, we were at Camp Joy and her 10-year-old was sitting next to me in the grass and she said, "Can I take my shoes off?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "I just want to feel the grass because I get foot cramps from sleeping in the car because we're bunched up so tightly." So it is really, really important to us that none of our children are sleeping in cars, none of our children are sleeping outside. And so these housing partnerships that we're building are really important to me, and I hope to be able to continue to build and expand these partnerships. And so finally, I just want to talk about how you refer to Project Connect. We really try to ensure that all families who are eligible for our program are aware of the services that we offer and how to access these services. Next slide, please. We do present at every school to make sure that people in the school are aware of who we are and how to contact us. Families coming into the customer care center who identify that they are in a temporary living situation are referred to us immediately through a shared report. And we have an online portal where families can self-refer or anybody in the community can refer a family, and that generates a report to us. And finally, we try to make ourselves visible. We try to attend any community events that Cincinnati Public Schools is having. We're happy to join any events the city might be having. We really want to get out there in the community to make sure people are aware of us and the services that we offer. Thank you. So if you have any other questions, oh, and I'm sorry, our contact information is right here, so you can also simply call and refer a family to us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Beach. Does anyone on the city or CPS side have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted, first of all, Ms. Beach, thank you so much. I mean, this is just phenomenal work.
Thank you.
It's heartbreaking to hear about so many of our students experiencing homelessness, and we know that there's an exigent need for affordable housing.
Yes.
And so but what I'm really impressed with is that in spite of the hardships, the graduation rate is so high. So I think that speaks a lot for CPS and the support you're providing.
Yes.
So that is wonderful.
Thank you. And I actually am very thankful to Cincinnati Public Schools because we do have a school counselor dedicated to providing just another layer of services to our unaccompanied youth who are seniors.
Thank you so much. So our Assistant City Manager, Virginia Talon, is here, and she wanted to I wanted her actually to give a few comments about additional resources that the city has just for everybody's info to make sure you all know about that as well. And I should mention our City Manager, Cheryl Long, is here. I just looked up and I'm sorry, Cheryl, I didn't look up earlier. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure how to address this group. Usually I would say to the chair, to the council members. So to the chair and to the council members and the esteemed board members, I'm Virginia Talent, Assistant City Manager. First of all, I just really want to acknowledge Rebecca Beach and the incredible work of Project Connect. And I have found so much value, not only in this job, but in many future professional or past professional iterations of working with Rebecca. And it's an incredible resource and one that I don't think gets enough recognition. And I have the opportunity in my current role to collaborate with Rebecca and with really an entire workforce of people around homelessness services in the community on the Clearinghouse Board. So we both participate in the city-county continuum of care, where we align as a community around how we're leveraging federal dollars to support people experiencing homelessness, including unhoused children and families. So that's one level of collaboration that we have, both with CPS, but lots of other providers in the community. So I just want to acknowledge the council's steadfast commitment to human services, which included in this last fiscal year investments both in homelessness prevention and in emergency rent assistance. And so really looking upstream, thinking about how we can prevent people from ending up in some of the situations Rebecca described in the first place. Also significant leverage support commitments to people that are providing shelter, emergency shelter to people who are experiencing homelessness, including family and children. So organizations like Bethany Health Services, like the YWCA, and like emergency rent assistance through St. Vincent de Paul Society. The other thing that's new and innovative that council did this year, and I wish that Councilmember Owens was here so that I could acknowledge her, was a $2 million impact award that is scheduled to take place over 3 years. That's really meant to get to the root cause. It's being led by Strategies to End Homelessness, and it's going to give us an opportunity to examine how to be predictive. How can we get to families, to people in the community at the earliest possible instance to, again, prevent homelessness so that we're not, overloading the system and Rebecca's inbox on the downstream. The other thing that I would highlight is the Access to Counsel pilot. So there's, again, like a new and historic investment from this council in supporting low-income tenants to access legal counsel and also rent assistance. And something that I didn't really plan to talk about, but I want to mention it because it was a really compelling part of Rebecca's presentation, is the council and the city's commitment to housing repair services and to supporting low-income homeowners to get repairs, and also to keep people who are in rental housing safe and in sanitary conditions. So everybody probably remembers, or if you don't, I'm about to remind you about that horrible winter storm over the Christmas holiday, where we had tens of thousands of pipes burst around the city. So the city building department has been working diligently to align a group of contractors that the city can deploy and be at the ready in large apartment complexes, so that people are going to be able to stay housed even if their landlord is failing and dropping the ball and not holding up their end of the bargain, which I think is really phenomenal and innovative. And so much of homelessness is driven by people's poor housing conditions and their inability to stay housed because of that. There are a lot of other reasons that Rebecca could speak to, and she did speak to some of them about why people end up in crisis, but that's definitely a top priority for the city to seek to get ahead of that and to prevent those instances. So a couple of other opportunities for alignment that I want to put on all of your radar. We're about to have all of our federal emergency rent assistance dollars extinguish and expire. The city is down to its last 1.8 million from federal COVID ERA dollars. I don't have a number from the county, but I know that by the end of the year, they're going to be out of dollars. And that's going to be a huge transition point for our community. So both the city and the county have had some convening conversations recently about how do we move forward as a community? What does the landscape look like? And I know that our partners at the Department of Job and Family Services at the county are taking that really seriously. And so that's something just for everybody to be aware of, that is a resource that's been available, really since 2020, and those funds are going to go away, and there is still a need. We have historic rent inflation in our community. There are a lot of people who still have not recovered economically from COVID, and so that's something that we're going to have to continue to contend with. The other thing that I want to highlight, and that Rebecca highlighted, and I want to lean into it, we are having a really hard time in our community with housing choice voucher placement. And I think it's because of a couple of things. One, the housing market is more constricted than ever. Rents are incredibly high, and so for landlords, it's just a cost of doing business decision. It's easier just to rent to someone who can pay more on the private market than to accept a housing choice voucher. But there are things that our friends in Washington could do to make this program more productive and easier to deploy in communities. And so I think that's something that we all need to begin to align around as local officials, to be seeking solutions from the US Congress, from the Department of Housing and Urban development. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm happy to, again, just acknowledge Rebecca because she's really a champion for children and for families, and we need like 20 more people like Rebecca in most places. So thank you for everything you do.
We need 20 more people like Rebecca and like Virginia. You're both phenomenal, I've got to tell you.
We absolutely do.
Yeah, you mentioned how things were when everyone's pipes were bursting, and Virginia Talent is the one everybody called, and so that was over the holiday.
Well, I know they called the city manager too because we were in it
And
together.
City Manager Long, absolutely. And so they did not have a holiday, and you all were out there, dealing with all these crises, and so we really appreciate it, and I know Ms. Beach was as well. So thank you so much for that work. And you're leading this, Dr. Mott.
We're supposed to be alternating, but
Right,
Vice Mayor Kearney is.
we're just working together.
Okay. I do have a question, and I think some of the members have a question too. Let me go to you all first. Any questions? Yes, President Lindy.
Thanks, Dr. Muffet. We are not the United States Congress, unfortunately, and so we don't have all the levers available to us at the moment that you were referencing. I would like to ask, though, can we be more helpful for you? It seems like the work you're doing is incredibly important, and anything that the school board could do to be helpful to reach more children, to fight back against some of the trends that you were identifying. Can we be doing more?
I'll let Rebecca speak first, and then I'm happy to answer that.
I think the school board is incredibly supportive of the work of our program. I am concerned about losing the housing specialist position because of the ESSER funds going away on June 30th. So I am hoping to find some grant funding or some other source of funding to keep that position. So if you can keep your ears open.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to make a comment too that, a lot of people ask us if it's legal for landlords to deny housing based on income source, and it's not legal. Our city municipal code makes that totally illegal. So you can't say to someone, we don't accept vouchers. A lot of people ask landlords, do you accept vouchers? And my understanding, and I don't know if anyone's here from the legal department, but it's totally illegal to say we don't accept vouchers.
So I'm happy to speak to that, and I might invite Shannon Price from the law department to come up. But first I want to respond to what CPS Board President Lindy indicated. So really, I know you're not the Congress, but you have a voice and you're a powerful local person. And I think that what we need is alignment locally to drive some of these solutions that are needed at the federal level. That's really what I was trying to say. Because it is impacting us locally in a dramatic way. And it's really making it hard for people like Rebecca and her team to actually get people into housing. They have this voucher, but it's not worth the paper it's printed on if they can't place it. It's really meaningless. So to your point, Vice Mayor, it certainly is on the books illegal, but the problem is, like laws, if there's no one to enforce them, and it's a private right of action, if no one is taking those cases for low-income people, then again, the law is really just what it is written. It doesn't become meaningful or powerful. I don't know, Shannon, if you wanted to say more, but that's as much as I would probably say about it.
Okay.
And I should have acknowledged Shannon Price and also Director Catherine Keogh-Jers, Director of our Department of Planning and Community Engagement. Yeah, I'm not doing so well with this, am I?
It's okay.
I'm missing people too. So thank you so much for being here.
I do have a question. Because that sounds like discrimination if a landlord says that they will not. Who does the person report to if they find that the landlord said that they're not going to rent to them because they have vouchers? What's the process?
Yeah, so there are really probably two ways that someone could seek relief that wouldn't be through a private attorney. One would be approaching Housing Opportunities Made Equal, which is Hamilton County's fair housing organization. And the other avenue would be to call the Legal Aid Society. But I can tell you, based on my experience in the system, that doing either really would not result probably in any action. Neither one of those organizations is taking cases like that, at least not that I've seen. And so we're kind of left where we are. It might be useful to even for you to reach out, Dr. Moffitt, to Legal Aid or to Housing Opportunities Made Equal to have a conversation with them about the barriers that they see. because I'm sure that they do see a barrier if they're not taking those cases.
Well, we just had Board Member Vice President Craig leave, but he used to work for Housing Opportunities Made Equal, so we can definitely use him as a reference as well. Does anyone else up here have any questions or comments? Thank you so much for all that you do, both of you, and for your teams that probably aren't here, but definitely deserve our appreciation. Thank you so much.
And you know what? I just thought of one final question for Ms. Beach. Is there anything, because often people come to us and say, how do we help? How do we volunteer? Are there any volunteer opportunities? Is there anything we can do?
So we do have, one of my team members does coordinate volunteer opportunities. We often will have volunteers come in during the summer to pack backpacks and help organizing our resource room. During the holidays, we have several holiday programs. We love to have volunteers help with that. And actually last year, the city, thank you, Virginia, provided gift cards to our families. So during the holiday program, we were able to give them gift cards along with their gifts. So the city's been a really great support, but you can always connect them to me and I can definitely discuss volunteer opportunities with them.
Ken, I should ask Superintendent Wright, is this something that people can sign up for with the Be Present program? Okay, that's wonderful. All right, thank you so much.
And one last thing, Ms. Beach, you're accepting donations too. Is that right? Not
Yes.
just volunteers?
Yes,
But
we do.
money?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes, we do
We
accept
have a
money.
need,
And
and that is funding. So,
sure,
they can
and
direct that to you.
clothing, we ask that it be new clothing because we want to give our students new items. So clothing, shoes, hygiene items.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from council members, CPS board members? Okay, so our next so thank you so much. Our next topic is health checks for students. So just a quick, brief update on school nurses and dental clinics. We're going to call up our phenomenal health department director, Dr. Grant Mussman. Thank you so much.
And vision.
And vision as well. Dr. Moffitt said, let's talk about vision also. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm happy to report that our 13 school-based health centers and our vision centers and our 5 dental centers in the schools are extremely busy and have been very busy and productive this year. There's a lot of interest from the student body and their parents in services there, and that's just fantastic to see. We are really excited for the partnership to open a dental center at Roberts. That is just so exciting for that community and for that school. I think that's going to be fantastic. Right now, we have 45 nurses in the school. We should be able to get up to 47 in the next few weeks. I don't anticipate that we're going to be able to get to that 48 number. Historically, whatever number we've been at is our target number. We never quite reach because there's always life. There's always a resignation or someone moving on or something happened, and our hiring process is slow. I mean, it is tough to keep up with that. So I don't anticipate getting up to that 48, but we are working very hard with our partners at the school to deliver nursing services with that number.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions? Okay, Ms. Bolton.
Thank you so much. Folks will know that this is near and dear to my heart. We do have, I think, not only the city partnerships, but other private partnerships are helping us with our school-based health centers and our vision centers and dentistry, but the major partner is the city. And this is a historic partnership. There's no question about it, whether it was the nurses that we begin with or the idea that we have school-based health centers for our students and frankly our families, and in some instances in the schools through the community and the neighborhood. There's not enough to be said, but I can say that I believe this is still true, that Cincinnati Public, and in part largely due to the work of the city folks, as well, we have more school-based health centers in the district, Cincinnati district, than the entire state combined. And I've
That's
now
awesome.
checked that a few times.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. And it's whether it's the city or it's Interact Health, or whether it's our community that endorsed the Community Learning Center concept, whatever it may be, it really, for CPS and for the city, it is about the whole child and caring about the whole child. The work, you know, one of the things during our crisis in transportation that I know the superintendent has worked through so well, one of the great crises about it was that it wasn't just getting the kids to and from school necessarily. It was whether or not we could get the kids that need dentistry work, need the vision check, need the health check. So as we overcome the crisis in transportation, these kids are now being served, beginning to be served in the numbers that they were pre-COVID and transportation crisis. But I want to suggest that this is true, and I know the vice mayor will enjoy this and feel really good about it, that even during the time when we weren't able to do the transportation part of it, the students have become so accustomed to this, especially our teenagers, that they would try to ask for appointments. And they would go to the places where there used to be appointments, or they would go to the main office and ask how could they get there for not just the vision check, but so often it was about the dentistry. And their families were dependent upon it too. So this partnership is what we should be modeling, and I know that's why we're all meeting and we want to meet more. This is a historic partnership that is legend in this state and regionally. And so hats off to the city and hats off to CPS and hats off to the community that has demanded this for their children and their teenagers. So I know staff feels strongly about they cannot do what they need to do if indeed the kids are suffering health-wise. And one last thing, we probably even need to expand vision checks and more intensely do it if possible, largely because as some of the studies have shown, especially out of Euler, where they did a more intense vision check, they found that more than 40% of our kids had vision problems. And that is a key. As a former teacher, I can tell you, if they can't see, they're going to have trouble, and it's going to impede not only their ability, but it's going to impede their self-image. So hats off to the city for buying into this great partnership.
Well, we are
Excellent.
grateful and humbled to be one of your school-based health center providers.
Absolutely. I was going to say the vision checks are so important because often our kids are sitting in back of the classroom. They can't see the board. They can't see what's going on, and they wonder why they aren't learning. And often that's the issue. I was going to say dental as well. You know, I think we, in the past, we meaning, you know, the public at large, we haven't really realized the importance of good dental checks because, you know, having infections can really lead to some pretty serious consequences. So that's so the health of the entire child, and then mental health is something I think we're going to talk about later, are we not? Or should we talk about that now?
We can touch on it now. I don't think it's really on our agenda per se, but
Okay. Well, that might be. I think Dr. Little was going to talk about that too. So we'll get to that. Mr. Lindy?
I'll be very quick, Doctor. I just wanted to say two things. One, thank you for all of your help during COVID. And I wanted to say how nice it is to see you in person and not on a box on a screen when we can be in person and talk about something other than COVID. So thank you for all your help on this and before. Thank you.
I am thrilled to be here not talking about COVID.
And I think Superintendent Wright has comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just as a couple of updates as well, in a recent conversation with Darlene K. Mine, as we were having conversations around where we're getting ready to go with the Vision Center over at Roberts, we started having a lot of dialogue around kindergarten and kindergarten readiness. And so immediately from that conversation, we went back to the team to start developing a plan for the next semester to at least start with our kindergarten students and getting them all vision screened. Because we begin to see changes as we think about students and as they're progressing. So I did want to share that to start with. So we're really excited about that. The second thing is it is likely that it may come up in public comment. So I thought it most appropriate to address it at this time. We all have heard about some of the challenges that we've had in terms of nursing and nursing services, and we've been working together to work through those things. There are some misconceptions that are out there, but the reality is we currently have about 45 nurses in our schools, as we shared. Because we are working through contract language with the differences in skilled care and what skilled care looks like in our schools, we also, not only do we contract about $6 million with the health department, but we also employ another 17 LPNs to provide skilled nursing services to our students. And in situations where there have been challenges with getting that skilled care done for students, we also contract with LPNs. So we're meeting, the teams meet very regularly. We're meeting coming up in October so that we can continue to move forward and work through the processes together. So we're continuing to provide the quality services to our students that they need and deserve. So I wanted to share that now because I do anticipate it may be something that you'll hear about in public comment possibly.
Thank you so much.
Superintendent Wright, stay there for a second.
Sure.
Vice Mayor Kearney brought up mental health. So can you speak towards what the district is doing to support the mental health of our students globally, like who we partner with?
Absolutely. So currently all of our schools have access, all of our students have access to mental health support services at their school sites. We work through I'll call it a conglomerate, but we work through MindPeace. And through MindPeace, we have about 7 or 8 different service providers that go into our buildings and provide services to our students. What we saw, as most would expect after the pandemic, there was an increase in referrals. And so from the referrals, about 25% of them actually move into services and service support. And that's pretty much the norm as you think about those that are being referred. So right now, all of the positions that we have for mental health support services, all of those positions are actually filled. So we have those mental health providers in the school buildings. And on Monday, we'll actually be doing an update during the Health and Safety Committee meeting for an update for health and safety. And then at the next Health and Safety Committee meeting, we do anticipate that our MindPeace partner will be there to talk about it as well.
Oh, thank you.
And I only spoke about mental health support in terms of mental health providers, but in our schools, we also have, at every one of our school buildings, we have a social worker that also offers social work support. And many of our social workers are providing the tier 1 supports that are needed around mental health. Right now, our district, with the last level of support from the board, right now our district is operating below the average, the national average for social work support in school buildings. And so I do want to recognize and applaud the board for supporting our request for those services for our students, but that's where the work starts as well.
Thank you so much. I do have a question for our city representative. What is the plan for equitable access? There may be some hidden things there for some of our students that are Black and brown. I'm just going to call it out. Is there a plan for equity from the city side?
So it's a great question. I think this is actually a problem that's broader than just CPS. Health equity is incredibly important in our city. And we have problems with it in our city. We have, there's lots of barriers there. One barrier is insurance coverage. And we have expanded our team that helps enroll folks in insurance coverage. So anytime we have any user of our services who is not covered by insurance, because of course we'll see anybody regardless of insurance status. And we have a very generous sliding scale for folks who are self-pay. But we do try to get them enrolled in Medicaid services. So that is one place where we try to do that. I think our partnership with CPS for the school-based health centers is an incredible tool for the health department to address health equity, or, you know, as one intervention to help address health equity, because we can meet students where they are. We can alleviate some of the time and transportation issues with getting services. And of course, resources are resources. It would be great if every school had a school-based health center and a dental center and a vision center. And we know that's not the reality and not likely to ever be close to reality. But I'm happy to report that the transportation seems to be working really well, get folks into our dental clinics. I think that, you know, and we're expanding our dental services out at Roberts in recognition of, you know, the disparity with dental care, which I think sometimes we don't think hard enough about, because it does play into ultimately your health in general.
Thank you. I have one last question, which is going to date me, but I remember getting hearing checks. You know, you had to go and put the little thing on and ding, ding. Do we do hearing checks for our students?
We do. I don't know the schedule for that, but be happy to provide that. But we do those sorts of screenings.
Yes, Board Member Bolton.
Again, thank you. I think the superintendent pointed out the numbers that we have regarding social work, and that we are meeting the national standards and more. I think we also, and we don't want to confuse mental health and necessarily counseling, but as a result of the superintendent's budget this year, we also grades 7 through 12 meet national standards or better for counselors per student.
Right.
And I don't know any other urban district in the state of Ohio, and I checked around just this week, that can meet us. We like to lead, we don't like to follow.
Right.
But that is a remarkable achievement, and I will tell you, 15 years ago, and then a few years after that or so, we had counselors in only 3 of our high schools. And now we have them in 15. And it's a great tribute to the superintendent. It's a great tribute to any number of board members, not myself, but I can think of a whole number of board members time after time wanting to up that number. And it's one of the bragging points that we have, but most importantly, it's helping our kids and our teenagers.
Fantastic. Wow. Any other?
Doing some good stuff.
Yeah, we are. This is fantastic. Any other comments, questions? Okay, Dr. Musman, thank you so much. Thank you for all your work. We appreciate the City Health Department and all the work and the partnership with CPS and the community learning centers. And one day we'll have to bring Darlene Kamine on to talk about that, because she's the one who started those community learning centers, and she's phenomenal. So also grants for Cincinnati, Pat Stewart Adams is a big part of that as well. So, okay. All right. I'm turning it back over to Dr. Moffett.
So just to let the public know, we sent around on the CPS side topics that board members, we requested topics that board members may want to have discussed with the city, our city council colleagues. And so one of them was a school safe mile zone designation. I'm going to turn that part over to board member Bolton, whose suggestion that was for a topic.
And I know that the Vice Mayor and I have had at least a couple of conversations about it. And I also know that Councilman Johnson's very interested in this topic as well. As a result of some of the transportation policies that you saw and some of the changes that the superintendent and team have made, we now have a point where both our teenagers and our youngsters are within that 1 mile, okay, if you're beyond that 1 mile, because it used to be different mileage, are transported, or we attempt to transport, or what have you. One of the reasons we wanted to do that is to think in terms of actually making it clear as to what our responsibility could be regarding safety. And in the old days, well, I know the old days, we had school zones, and we still have school zones. I mean, signs and whatever. We know the federal government says you can't have a gun within this distance, and the city has particular criteria and what have you. It just seems to me, if I look at our 65 or more schools, let alone the other schools for which we are at least indirectly responsible, because every one of these kids, either they go to Cincinnati Public, or they go to parochial, or they go to private, or they go to charter, frankly, they're all ours, ultimately. And I just think this would be an opportunity, since this council is so committed to safety, and especially focused on young people. If there's a way that we can, I'm always into, as everyone knows, maps, social studies teacher in me, to put that up on a map where every one of all these students go to school, and think in terms of that 1 mile radius, and think if there was a way that everyone, citizens and the city, all our safety folks, responders, our wonderful people that watch the traffic, the wonderful people that are serving our kids, if we could just start to think about how the city, and we're bigger than the city, but at least within the city limits, if we could start to think about truly safe zones, 1 mile, golden mile, whatever you want to, whatever the marketers would come up with. And the people that live within that mile too would obviously benefit. And the students, because as some of you know, we are working very hard to reestablish our neighborhood schools as such a large priority. We're very much interested in the transportation efforts, as not only the consultants that came in, but also board policy and the superintendent, and I know the treasurer too. We've talked in terms of what transportation is. It isn't just buses. It is about walking. It is bicycling. We had some folks give out bicycles at one of our, as Evanston school. Now, the question is, do we have bicycle racks? Do we have ways for the kids to safely walk to school? And dismissal and arrival time is not just about that bus, but those kids that are walking. And it would seem to me that it would be great, knowing the folks that are on city council, it would seem great if some members of council and some members of the board could start to design a concept of that golden mile, that safe zone, where we really make serious an effort to be present in those space of times, especially. We value so much when we unfortunately have to go on lockdown or shutdown. We so value the relationship, the daily, hourly relationship we have with our police and fire folks who tell us there's a danger. So what do? We kind of secure the school, secure the campus. I just think we could really do even better if we had a grand plan. And I think parents would be appreciative, and I know staff would be, and the little ones and the teenagers. I was actually, Mr. Lindy and I, for other purposes, were at Hughes for dismissal today. And it's remarkable. And I'm a high school teacher from way back, but I'll tell you, when 1,000 kids come out of a building, it's pretty remarkable.
Remarkable is a good word.
That's it. It's remarkable. Of course, I love teenagers, so what are you going to do? But I just think if we could really kind of get our teeth into that, I think we've got the right people on council to help lead it.
So we're going to go to the safety chair.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
That is, I like that idea, Ms. Bolton, because there are some state laws that are already on the books when it comes to dealing drugs and things of that nature within it. When I was there. I think, help me out, Sergeant Kennebrew, is it still 1,000 feet within the school? That stiffens the penalty. But those type of safe zones is something that I think everybody, as you've already articulated, would jump on board and be willing to participate in. So allow me to do a dive into what that may look like. Get on the map and look at the radiuses around all of our schools. And we'll take a look at that to see what we could do. Because I think, as you said, it would bring even the neighbors and bring everybody in to participate in this process, in this project, not only, during the school year, but around the clock. These are safe zones, and that's something that even I don't want to date myself too much, but as I started as a police officer, there were certain things just didn't happen around churches, certain things that just didn't happen around specific people in the neighborhood's home because that was a safe zone. So those are definitely things that I'll take a dive into that. And we will.
Thank you.
Report back on that. I see the managers at the dais, so maybe, I hope I'm not in trouble or anything.
So we'll go to Board Member Weinberg and then our city manager.
Yes. So I was just going to say that I totally agree with everything that everyone is saying. We definitely need to make our school zones safe. I can say, as I'm dropping off my daughter to school, there are individuals that are just racing down the street. They don't care that the children are crossing. They don't care that parents are crossing. So I think that this is something very important. I wanted Vice Mayor to announce or make a comment about the slogan contest, because we do have a winner regarding that, and it was about the whole issue of making the area safe as the children are walking and getting to school as well.
Okay, I'll real quickly say that, then I know City Manager Long is standing here at the microphone, but just thank you for asking about that. So Mary Weinberg, this is a group effort. So Mary Weinberg, Kareem Moffitt, Councilmember Scotty Johnson, Councilmember Mark Jeffries, City Manager Consultant Iris Rowley, and probably others that I'm just forgetting about. But okay, and me, and so and sorry, I know these are teachers here, so let me be correct in grammar. Came up with the idea that we need a slogan contest, and so we went to Cincinnati. Well, actually, any student ages grades K through 12 could submit the slogan, something to remind people to slow down and to stop at red lights, slow down in their driving in general and stop at red lights, because pedestrian safety is just a huge issue and a big problem, especially since COVID. It's just gotten worse. And so, so part of it is the educational piece. So we had, and the Center for Closing the Health Gap helped us, as well as the media. So we had, I think, about 80 entries from across the city. The Center for Closing the Health Gap chose 4 finalists, and then the public voted on the winner. And so it's Natalia Lastra, who's at Hyde Park School, and we're honoring, and I should say, a student in her class, Quincy, is the young lady who said, we've got to get going, we've got to enter this. And so we had a lot of good entries. And so we will be revealing her slogan, and you might have actually seen it on television already. But because the PSA is already out there, thanks to Channel 9, we really appreciate their work. But we're having a big party at Hyde Park School on September 21st, noon to 12:40. So we invite you all to come and celebrate. And we'll be re-unveiling her slogan and talking about it. She's won $500 as well, and her class has won a pizza party. So Miss Kate Fisher was the 5th grade teacher. Now Natalia and her friends are in 6th grade, but they're going to come back to Miss Fisher's class for the celebration. So we're really excited. And then we're going to do a big media campaign with this slogan. So you'll see more about it.
at our next meeting.
That would be great.
City manager.
Yes, to the chair and to the board. In response to the request, I think this is a great opportunity. What we've been trying to do in City Hall is really arm community with the ability to take back their safety, their personal safety, block by block. So what we have been working with, along with Iris Rowley, in addition to Assistant City Manager Talon, is community safety plans. Working directly with the community councils to arm them with the tools and resources to acknowledge, what they can do. And so I think that this is a perfect opportunity when we talk about the 1 mile, because while we know the importance of police presence, there's also the importance of those watch guards of the community and how do we arm them and give them something to do. And we're trying to be intentional with that. I think this would be perfect to kind of mold into what we're talking about with the community safety plans with the community councils, and that can accomplish everything. So that's what we will work on doing. And then hopefully as we work along, the goal is through the neighborhood summit to actually have a convening of that group. While we may not be done, but it takes time to get people to understand to take their power back. So that's what we'll add to the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, can you all just make sure that you include CPS in the planning? Because we sometimes get a little stepchildish. So
Okay,
we
absolutely.
would like to be in that. And I think Board Member Bolton is very interested, since this was her idea. She was very insistent on it being on the agenda. So I'm going to volunteer her to work with Councilmember Johnson.
Our Councilmember Johnson has that under control. He's our public safety chair and he'll make it happen.
Right.
Thank you.
So remaining with Board Member Bolton, because she submitted this as well, shared comprehensive review of city CPS properties. Bring that back over.
Yeah, this is not an idea, but a reality through the work of the superintendent and the administrative team, and also because of the calendar year after year after year after year. Some of you will know that it's been almost 20 years since the facilities master plan began for Cincinnati Public Schools. And through the administration's efforts, I know that they have been putting together a facilities plan regarding renovation, maintenance, and what have you. And through the ad hoc committee, which is a board committee with the superintendent and treasurer participating, we've also started to look at how our buildings not only need service or maintenance or correction or remodeling, because it's been 20 years or so. We figured out also we have to look at the capacity in our buildings and whether or not we can go to the public and say we are equitably and efficiently using the buildings that they paid $1.2 billion for. And 78% of that was locally funded. So kind of this is an announcement to the city that the administration is doing that with our buildings. We also know with our buildings, there are many of our buildings that share parcels, so to speak, with the recreation centers of the city or with the park board and what have you. And so again, Councilman Johnson, this is another big map, but it would seem to me that we could work together. These are things that really, actually this is about turf because it's about property, so that doesn't work. This is not about a power thing or who has authority, but these are the things that we can work together so efficiently and make the right impression on the public and get their input. So I think all I wanted to make sure is I didn't know if we would all know, I know the board knows that our administration is going through that process of those facility maintenance. We're going through the process of capacity, and we also are going through, shared spaces. I mean, the city services for health are within our spaces. So, and then we're adjacent to the recreation centers, whether it's in Northside or in College Hill, which, by the way, is the center of the universe. I mean, the rec center on Belmont in the city, is a partner to Aiken. There's so much of our campuses, and I know we're working on the green campus, green what have you, efforts together. I just think there's a great opportunity for cooperation where things could get done and done well, and the public would appreciate it. It would save us, I think, some monies. It would also make us think more effectively and efficiently about how we use the things that the taxpayers have given us. So that's just another thing, if we have some kind of work that the district and the city could do together, it would be my suggestion. Thank you.
That's fantastic, and that's the beauty of having this joint meeting, that there are so many issues we can collaborate on, and which is really the purpose. And it just makes me think we're going to have to really have quarterly meetings, because there's so much to update each other on, and work together and then report back to the public. And so you just mentioned two really, really good things. Thank you so much. So next, we've been hearing a lot about the Public Safety Academy status, and we're really excited about that. Just an opportunity for our young people, another opportunity for our young people. And I think that Virginia Talon, our Assistant City Manager, is going to talk about this along with Dr. Derek Little from CPS. So it's a joint effort. So thank you so much. Looks like Dr. Little's at the mic first. Ms. Talon's on the way. We'll let you two decide who starts.
We've got some practice sort of sharing this, so we'll work through it. Good evening, everybody. Happy to sort of share what we're thinking about collectively around Public Safety Academy, and also tee up things that we've got to start to figure out together as well. Next slide, Rob. So first, just a level set, and again, this is not news really to folks in this room, but for the public, as we think about a Public Safety Academy, we're really trying to think through a few things. How do we build a strong pipeline of public safety servants for the city overall that's thinking about police, fire, 911, and other public safety sectors? We know the community has weighed in on this through voting for the bonus points with the civil service exam. And it's something that we've been committed to in CPS for some time, and are really at a point to think through, how do we make this bigger? How do we make it more accessible? And how do we ultimately get more officers that look like and represent the city of Cincinnati? Right. Next slide. This is also a really good opportunity for our students. These careers are better than living wage careers, certainly have meaning to them in terms of the contribution to society and to the community. We won't acknowledge sort of how our starting pay in CPS fares against these numbers, but this is a really great opportunity for graduates of Cincinnati Public Schools. We know that there are challenges in graduating college and immediately becoming a police officer. You can't do that because there are age requirements in place. But you can go work at the 911 call center, or you can start to engage in the pathway to being a firefighter and earn really sort of lucrative wages in doing so. So this is something that we want to just basically better message to our student body, but also find stronger pathways into these careers. Next slide, please. We know that we're at a place, as we think about this opportunity for our students in the community, to consider what looks like the best pathway forward to make sure that Cincinnati with CPS has the best in class public safety academy in the country. There are some limitations to where our current fire safety academy is logistically and tactically. We know that we are space limited where we currently have programming. We're also not as proximate to the fire and police training academies as those organizations would like us to be. So we want to think about, as we're thinking about programming and expanding opportunity, how do we also ensure that space matches the desire and vision for that programming? Next slide. We have been doing this together. So, with the mayor, the city manager, the superintendent, the chiefs, we have pulled together a diverse and representative group of people to really think through how do we build this and think about this together, taking into account all the great work that's been done on this already. So we are looking at logistics, we're looking at shared curricular, shared training, how do we share instructors. what does this look like from co-capital investment as well as sustainability? And that's sort of work that we will, and the City Council and the board will ultimately have to weigh in on as well. Next piece. This gives you a quick update on what we've been doing over the last roughly sort of 4 to 5 months together as a group. As mentioned, this comes from the leaders of the city, the superintendent, the mayor, the city manager, sort of bringing us together to kick this off in earnest. We know that the city voters took this position a number of years ago, and so there's real appetite to pick this up and carry it forward, and that's what that shared steering team is doing. Some of the work has been sort of paper-based, looking at curriculum, starting to think about alignment. We've also done field visits together, where we've gone to the police academy, we've gone to the current fire training center, which we know is going to be expanded and ultimately built out by the city, and to the call center. So we're continuing to think about ways to better understand our needs with our students who are still in high school, and ultimately the needs as they enter these careers. And then last slide will give you a quick overview of sort of where we are working to get to in the next really 12 months, thinking about if we collectively come to agreement and the board and the council want to move forward, to how does this sort of reimagine Public Safety Academy really launch in an expanded way, serving more students with direct interest in these careers for next school year. So that kicks off later this fall with a recruitment campaign, making sure we do more work to know that students understand these opportunities and have the chance to experience them and talk to folks currently doing it, again, with a specific equity lens of thinking through student populations that need to mirror the communities that they will ultimately serve. There's other things up there, so there's a lot of tactical things to do, but really thinking through what is our shared commitment and shared investment in this work is the larger sort of strategic question that we've got to think about really quickly.
I really feel like Dr. Little said it so well. The only thing that I would add that really is independent and apart from this is city's HR team and the police department really thinking about those gap years for the police academy. The police department, and Councilmember Johnson would know this better than anyone else up on the days, they're really at a disadvantage because you can't really become a police officer and carry a firearm until you're 21. So really we're trying to close that gap through our Career Pathways initiative. And I really just have to thank Dr. Little for his leadership and collaboration. This has been really exciting to collaborate on, and I'm very confident we're going to get to a product that really fits the bill, and I know would align around the goals that the manager and the mayor have for it.
This is really just so fantastic, and Dr. Moffitt and I were sitting here looking at the starting salaries, and so for the 911 call center operator, minimum age 18 years old, minimum credential high school diploma, and the entry salary is about $55,000 a year, which is, I mean, at age 18 and just finishing high school, that's really wonderful. And then for the public safety officer, and you do have to be 21 years old, you need a high school diploma or a GED. You would make $41,000 during the academy, and then the entry salary is $72,000. And then for the firefighter at age 17 years old, high school diploma or GED, the salary is $48,000 during the initial recruit period, and then it jumps up to the real entry salary of $63,000. So that is a good way to get started in life. I tell you, that's wonderful. So thank you. City Manager Long.
I want to underscore the importance of this from the city administration. At the end of the day, we have to have staff that represents the communities they serve. So I don't want to, when people understand say that this is important, right? No, this is severely important, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is build our bench with people who can identify with the people they're serving, right? Going within our schools, providing people not only a lifestyle that would be different than probably anybody that stood before them, but in addition to that, the cultural competency and being able to talk to people and like-minded, these are significant things that need to be done. So when we talk about the importance of the Public Safety Academy, it gives us the ability to recruit within our immediate community. And that is what we do not have right now. And we're trying to build out that infrastructure, but it is needed now. So we are with Pathways, we're working with the high school kids and trying to build out with CPS and trying to make sure we get them within our orbit. But the key is to keep them there and let them know that even if you may not end up being 21 yet, we can start in our 911, we can start in our firefighter, you can move within departments. And then also what we're not seeing is what we're trying to do with the building inspectors. We have a building inspection academy that we have created that is for those technical skilled individuals to be able to, from code enforcement, having somebody show up to your door to deliver a hard message that looks like you. These are things that we're doing beyond of what you see that I just want to make sure that I raise the importance of that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned building inspector interns as well. And that salary is a pretty high starting salary as well.
And
So,
it's needed for the cultural competency piece alone. It is
Right.
needed.
right. Okay, any comments from the dais here?
Yeah, I just would like to say thank you. The significance of something of this magnitude is I can't even really describe, because having done and served in law enforcement, understanding compassion and care will bridge a gap in the most treacherous situations. And when you have that cultural competency there, it goes a long way. So this is something that I believe is absolutely necessary and vital for the city of Cincinnati overall. And I think it would change the perception, so to speak, of being a police officer. I know it's not the most popular profession on the planet right now, and across the board, police officers have really not done themselves any favors collectively across the board in things that have taken place. But having said that, I think it would change the dynamics all the way around here in this area. So I'm 1,000% supportive of it. And even since its inception, when the conversation started, I was totally behind it. So yes, let's make it happen. Let's get it going. Thank you very much for all the work that you've done.
Superintendent Wright?
So thank you so much. So I would just like to also add to Councilmember Johnson's. So starting on May 2nd last year, my third day on the job, meeting with the mayor, this was one of the topics on the agenda. And I understand that this has been a long time in terms of the conversation. So I want to publicly applaud our team for taking the challenge, for taking the information as was shared at that time. And that was prior to Dr. Little, but working with the team to actually get the conversation started and at least begin to talk about the possibilities of what could be. And so this has been now a year in the making, and I did want to make sure that I acknowledge the team and thank them for that. A lot of folks in this room have come together around at least being able to present a plan to you and working in partnership, not just with the city, but with the other stakeholders that are on the list as well, so that at the end of it all, when the board and the city council come to agreement on where we go and we begin to look at funding, we have an excellent product, a product that we move with excellence for our community. So I just want to add that as well.
Thank you so much.
Rob, if you can go to slide 7. We want to put the timeline back up there again so that people can look at what the timeline is. Thank you.
Right, so we are moving forward. We've been hearing about this for years and years and years. So this partnership with CPS and the city is just huge. So thank you for your leadership, Superintendent Wright, our city manager, Cheryl Long, and her team, our mayor, Abtab Piraval, council members, board members, community, everybody making this happen for our kids. So thank you, everybody. This is wonderful. Okay.
Any questions?
Right. Any final questions on this topic? Okay. We're moving along and we're almost at public comment.
So we're going to, I think all of the city council members and the board members have received these community reinvestment area information, but board member Bolton is just going to talk about it very briefly so that when we do talk about this again, everyone is kind of on the same page. We're not going to go into detail, but we're just going to mention it very, very briefly.
Great, thank you. Besides, it's very, I'm assuming that no board and no council is yet ready to have public discussion about any of this, except to begin to figure out that in the long run and short run, we will be in negotiations regarding both the community reinvestment agreements and also another interest of the district, of course, is in the TIF districts as well. So the reality for all of us as we look to Columbus, and while this last state budget was helpful to us, it is really only temporary, and it won't necessarily be matched as we move forward, let alone with the universal vouchers efforts and what have you. We look at a declining revenue all around us. And so more and more we concentrate on the revenue that we need both locally and federally to make our case and be able to deliver our services. So this is really just kind of an opening that we will be in negotiations. I don't know if it's 24 and part of 25, if I recall, for the CRAs. And we had a successful negotiations a few years ago. And some of the folks that were part of that are not here. And so this is going to be a new team on both sides, and hopefully there won't be sides, but we'll find some common ground. But that's the CRAs. And then also as an effort to be thinking about this is also our growing interest regarding the TIF districts as well. And we know that you all are facing a ballot issue that could change the situation for everybody for a while, although money goes quick, I'll tell you, but the kinds of things that we all need to do, it again would seem that if we can make these negotiations mutually successful, which is what a good negotiations does, it could benefit all of our citizens. So that's just opening salvo that these things are on the horizon. And nobody's ready to talk about it yet that is holding elective office, but we will soon have to be doing that. So thank you for letting me mention that today.
All righty, righty. Okay, does anyone do any board members or council members have any questions, comments before we go to hearing of the public? All right.
So is it time for public comment? Hearing of the public, I think you call it here at CPS, and we call it public comment in City Hall. Hearing of the what?
Hearing of the.
Oh, okay, same thing. Okay, great. All right, so we have cards, and here's some more coming. Thank you, Ms. Autry. Everyone will get the privilege of the floor for 2 minutes, and we listen. So this is your time to comment. It's not Q&A for us. We really want to hear what the public has to say. I should ask Ms. Autry, I'm not sure if you're the person to ask, but how do we know when the 2 minutes are up? Is there? Oh, okay, Ms. Andrews is.
Got it covered.
Okay, Ms. Andrews is going to be our timekeeper. Thank you so much. Okay, so and where will speakers come? Right there to the mic. Okay.
Do we have online speakers? We usually take online
And
speakers.
do we have any online speakers?
We have 2 online.
Okay, we have 2 online. Okay. All right, well, why don't we start with the online speakers, if that's okay? And I'm not sure that I have their name.
Yes, we have 2 online speakers, Bill Collins and Jennifer Myree.
Okay.
They've been invited. They have not accepted the invitation to join live yet.
Okay, all right, then let's go to in person. We'll start with Sally Grimes.
And then we usually call 2 or 3 so they can be.
Okay, so Dr. Moffett told me to call 2 or 3. Okay, following Sally Grimes will be Michelle Dillingham, and after Michelle Dillingham will be Julie Sellers. And each of you will have the privilege of the floor for 2 minutes.
Put my readers on. Good evening. My name is Sally Grimes, and I am the Executive Director of Activities Beyond the Classroom, better known as ABC. ABC is a standalone 501c3 nonprofit that for almost 20 years now has supported extracurricular programs for CPS students through fundraising, citywide partnerships, and contracts with the district. ABC's programs include athletics, arts, wellness, world languages, and more. In an average year, we receive over $2 million from generous donors throughout the city to support these activities. One event we host is the CPS International Jazz Festival, which gives CPS children the opportunity to be the stars in a world-class music festival right here in Cincinnati at the Aronoff. I was fortunate to have both President Lindy and Vice Mayor Kearney join me on stage at our most recent Jazz Fest, where they welcomed the crowd and congratulated the children who participated. Another example of our work, earlier you heard from Ms. Beach. I didn't know what that was.
That yellow light just means you have one more minute.
And
You're
I'm
fine.
proud to share that ABC also works closely with Project Connect as their fiscal sponsor. We have many more examples of how we support CPS. And while we have worked closely with the district for nearly 20 years, we partner with Hamilton County, we've rarely had the opportunity to partner with the city of Cincinnati. I'm speaking tonight to introduce ABC to the representatives of the city and to make sure you know that ABC is ready to support any city initiatives that focus on engaging our youth in healthy and safe extracurricular and enrichment activities. On that note, as I was listening to the conversation, I was thinking that maybe ABC could help with the safe zones by securing bikes, bike racks, adding cycling clubs, and possibly revamping and reviving the walking school bus concept. So let's talk. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay, next speaker is Michelle Dillingham, followed by Julie Sellers. And Julie Sellers will be followed by Tamala Paul. So come on down.
Thank you. Michelle Dillingham with the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. This meeting was actually scheduled on top of our union meeting tonight, so that's why some of us are coming in late. CPS schools are staffed with school nurses who are employed by the city health department, but CPS pays for them. And over the past several years, we've been fortunate to have the federal funding to do that, but that funding will expire soon. And CPS simply just does not have the money to fully fund what we need for a nurse and full-time nurse in every school. Also, crossing guards are city employees, but CPS pays for these, the full cost, $3 million a year. Most suburban communities pay for the full cost of crossing guards and don't require reimbursement from schools. All these tax incentives that the city gives out, these are really the property of CPS and our school budgets, but we forego those. We are a passive loser in cities' tax incentives. So we're really grateful that this negotiation is coming up. We encourage and urge you electeds to please educate yourselves, because what we hear is that some of you say, well, we don't fully understand all of this, but our kids deserve the best. These TIF funds, there's $64 million in TIF funds sitting in the city coffers. Those are public property tax dollars. They were meant for our schools. We could use those dollars for things like safe zones, safe pedestrian, lighting, all those things. But instead, City Council usually looks at it like a slush fund for developers to incentivize their parking lots. And I just heard about 20 minutes ago, Jeff Birding is back again and wanting more TIF funds for the FC Stadium. So CPS has a lot of needs, and I'm really hopeful that this council will be more responsive to those. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Okay, next we have Julie Sellers, and Julie Sellers is followed by Tamala Paul, who will be followed by Rafael Prophet.
Thank you. I just ran from our membership meeting. I just want to talk about some of the issues that we are having in CPS. And the issues that we're seeing within CPS is due to the fact that the city doesn't have enough nurses that are available for us to have nurses in all schools. And secondly, it's the amount of the cost. I know some of you may have been on city council or living in the city, but it was Jeff Birding who was a swing vote to cut the nurses out of our schools. Until when he was on there, that was one of his last votes. And we need to have, the nurses are a public health service. They are the city's employees, but we are paying for them. And it isn't fair that we are picking up the full cost for all of the nurses, but yet they're not our employees. They're not our employees. We don't evaluate them. We cannot negotiate when they are having their days off. We don't have any say when they do their professional development. They take vacation time, not when they don't follow the school schedule and the calendar of the school. So there are times that the nurses we're paying for them, but they're off. There's times when we're paying for the nurses and they're at some city professional development. When we have professional development days for our staff and our kids aren't in school, why don't they align those dates? So there's a lot of problems around the contract between the city and the district, and it's not working. It's not working for our teachers. It's not working for our students. It's not working for our families. By state law, we have to provide nursing services. That's the law for kids. But it is not the law that it has to be done by non-medically trained employees. And so it's putting our employees, secretaries, clerical, teachers, paras, everybody at stake of having to be distracted from the job they're doing in order to do nursing care. And we cannot continue to do that. Our focus as teachers should be on teaching. I didn't take Nursing 101 when I got my teaching certificate. It's not the job of the secretaries. They have so many people coming and going out of their office that we feel that it is a risk that those students' meds are in this box. There was just a case last week. This nurse wasn't there. The secretary didn't know where the nurse left the key and the kid had an asthma attack. They had to go outside and call 911 because we didn't have a nurse in the building. Now, some of that is we can't afford to have a nurse in every building every day, but then I've also heard there aren't enough nurses to cover it anyway. There are nursing agencies that are out there who could provide those services to the district for a much lower cost. And if we need to, we might have to look, I would hope that our board looks at other vendors because the city's not providing what we need. And
Ms.
I've
Sellers,
never
and
heard of.
I'm so
okay.
sorry to interrupt. Ms. Andrews, are we at the 2-minute? Because the red light didn't come on. I just wondered. We were waiting for that.
They probably didn't
And Ms.
set it for
Sellers,
me.
no disrespect. We're trying to give
Yeah.
everybody the same amount of time. And so, just to be fair. So I'm sorry, we did have a tech problem, but.
You got 30 seconds, Julie.
Okay,
30 seconds.
so we have many unfilled vacancies. There are miscommunications between the district and the health department. There are medically fragile students who the administration from the city is saying that there are medical conditions they don't service. Some of the nurses who are health department nurses say, we don't service that for that kind of medical condition.
Okay.
But yet there are only nurses, and if they can't do the job, maybe we need somebody else to do the job.
Okay, we appreciate your comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I would be more than happy to meet with anybody from the city for any of
Absolutely.
this. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, we appreciate it. Ms. Andrews, are we able to get the timer going? I just want to make sure, is it working? Okay, I just want to make sure that we give everybody 2 minutes. We just want to be consistent and fair. Okay, are we ready with anyone online there? Okay.
Yes.
So please call the first person.
There's 2 online speakers. We have Jennifer Myree, followed by Bill Collins. Go ahead, Ms. Myree.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can, and you have the
Great.
floor for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for holding this event. I'm sorry that I could not have been there in person. I'm sure the energy is astounding. The NAACP supports Black families and children to make sure that they're able to socially move forward, and we will be holding our first Annual Education Summit at Woodward Career Technical High School on Saturday, September 30th from noon to 4. At that event, we will be informing, empowering, and providing solutions to education scenarios for Black families and advocates for public education. For more info, we will also have a light lunch served and opportunity to engage with people who are interested and dedicated to improving educational outcomes for Black families and students. For more information, please visit the Cincinnati NAACP website, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another online speaker, and then after that, we'll have in person Tamala Paul. Okay, so our next online speaker, I understand, is Bill Collins. Okay, Mr. Collins, you have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Go right ahead.
For 20 years, the most important group of people driving the revitalization of local neighborhoods have been young CPS parents. Some of these organized parents leverage the community engagement processes mandated as part of the district's $1.2 billion facilities master plan. Later, more parents organized, typically demanding either one of two things. Either one, the reopening of their neighborhood schools as walkable desegregated schools, or expanding the magnet Montessori schools along with more rigorous Montessori training. These activists were mostly young moms. They, unlike so many of their peers, decided not to flee to the suburbs to find good integrated schools, as so many families did then, and far too many families still do today, especially in the northeastern part of the district. Here I'm talking specifically about Kennedy Heights, Silverton, Columbia Township, and Madisonville. That's the area within the district where for decades, CPS made the mistake of leaning in with the Paideia pedagogy model at most schools. In those 4 communities, this left Montessori magnets and strong integrated neighborhood schools out of the equation, even as it became clear that the 4 Paideia schools in those 4 communities failed to achieve their stated goal of preventing middle-class flight from Kennedy Heights and Madisonville. Today, we have a school board, a superintendent, and a city council that are thankfully much more focused on strengthening neighborhoods, as we see here. To make that reality on the ground, we'll need serious joint plans to be developed by the city and CPS. The goal here would be to dramatically expand collaboration between the city and CPS to locate new mixed-use sites for what will include both new CPS schools and new housing. The big opportunity here is sites that today are occupied by either one, shuttered Catholic schools or churches, and also by Protestant churches with rapidly declining memberships that could no longer afford to maintain those large properties and might be willing to sell to CPS.
Mr. Collins, thank you so much. I'm sorry your 2 minutes are up, but we appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Tamala Paul. Ms. Paul, you have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am the district's clerical specialist. I'd just like to comment on the nursing aspect of things. Providing medication to our students is a major responsibility that should not be taken lightly. Asking clerical staff to administer medication has the potential for serious mistakes, such as improperly tracking dosages, inadvertently giving a student the wrong medication or dosage, or possibly providing a student medication without the appropriate paperwork being on file for the current school year. Perhaps administering medication that is expired, or even having a student have an adverse reaction to their medication and our clerical staff not being adequately trained to properly assess the symptoms and reactions that they're having and address those. Additionally, there are instances when there is only one clerical team member working in the school's main office. Administering medication oftentimes requires them to frequently step away from their workspace to dispense the medication to our students. This would leave the main office unmanned, and this becomes a security issue as well as a customer service issue. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Rafael Prophet, followed by Fanny Carradine, and ending with Captain Danita Pettis. Okay, Mr. Prophet, you have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening to this joint board, council and board, the administration, city, as well as the school board. You know, the Public Safety Academy is really what I want to address, and it's been talked about how long we've really been trying to, move this forward. You know, and part of my concern is the steering committee in terms of the lack of diversity. We have representation from the administration, city administration, CPS administration, the police department, the fire department, but there seems to be a lack of community involvement. And from my experience, being one of the leads to develop this effort, is that if we're going to make a successful program, we have to have community involvement. And so I believe that we need to have representations from all swaths of our community. The NAACP, who was a big supporter in getting this passed on the ballot, right? Also, labor, I believe they should be on track as well, because there may be some hurdles as you develop this, and you can go back and forth, but you put them in the room on the ground floor, and I think you can address some possibly friction points as they're addressed. And again, parent groups, right? Because this is going to take some really robust recruiting. It's going to take some acceptance from our community, and it's going to take help from our community to really get our kids encouraged to become public safety officials, firefighters, and police officers. It's not a natural thing. And so it's going to take a community effort to really get a successful program. So I hope that we will expand the membership of the steering committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Our next speaker is Fanny Carradine.
Good evening, Board and City Council. My name is Fanny Carradine. I am the president of the Cincinnati Federation of Office Professionals. I want to speak to the nursing situation. It was stated that there is 45 nurses. That is not enough nurses for our schools. The school secretaries are being asked to be the backup when the school nurse is not in the building. The school secretaries are not feeling comfortable or adequately trained to be able to dispense this medicine, and they just really feel that something else should be put in place than just having school secretaries be the backup for when the nurse is not in the building. We ask that, we come together in some kind of meeting, that maybe we can get another agency involved where we can get more nursing staff in the buildings to assist our students with the medication that they're needed daily, and sometimes several times a day in the midst of a school day. So that's what we're asking, if we can get some assistance with getting other nurses in the building. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Captain Danita Pettis, District 2. Welcome, Captain Pettis. You have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you. Myself and CAPA President Will West are here tonight to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Raphael Prophet has already spoke on regarding the Public Safety Academy. Both of our respective organizations, both the Sentinel Police Association and the Cincinnati African American Firefighters Association, are here representing community stakeholder organizations. We have been in joint efforts with the city and both Cincinnati Public Schools since as early as, I believe it was January 10th of this year, when we sat through a presentation very similar to the one that was presented this evening. And so we're just want to express our eagerness for the standing up of the Public Safety Academy and kind of show our support in terms of community organizations. So we're really here to support that effort.
Just to add, on behalf of the Cincinnati African American Firefighters Association, we would like to make sure, like she said, we are used not only as stakeholders, but as a resource for answers to a whole lot of the things that we saw in the presentation, starting with things such as curriculum. We all have, both organizations have members who are instructors, active and retired. We have members who write the curriculum currently for the police department recruits, as well as the fire department recruits. Funding, we have throughout the option to reach out to the Ohio Department of Education, which we have reached out to ourselves to say, hey, do you guys have funding? We were told, yes, the funding is there. Utilize us. That's what we're here for. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Okay, that's the end of public comment. Before Superintendent Wright and then the President of CPS Board, Ben Lindy, makes closing remarks, would anyone else like to speak up here on the dais. We just want to really thank all of you for being here. And I thank all of my colleagues here. We just, Dr. Moffitt planned this. Great job. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Everybody worked together. And the fact that CPS and the city are working together because we're all serving the same people. So we really appreciate the public and this partnership. So before President Lindy gives us, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember John. Oh, okay, everybody wants to speak now. Okay, Councilmember Johnson. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Ms. Bolton.
I'm going to
Ms.
take
Bolton.
a point of personal privilege since this is the last joint meeting that we will be having, that board member Carolyn Jones will be a member of the school board. And she's been a guiding force in bringing the groups together. I know she's counting the days and the hours at this point in time, but I know that we, board members that are here and board members that are not here, wanted to make sure that this council was very well aware. Carolyn has been president of the board a number of years, vice president, and a member not only of this school board, but of North College Hill. And she is now closing out that career, and she is now being appointed to the Preschool Promise Board of Managers as our representative. But I know that the council wouldn't want to take this opportunity to say thank you, and I know the board's going to have a number of opportunities in those days that still last. But she has been a moving force on these joint sorts of meetings. So appreciate that.
Absolutely. Ms. Jones has been a fearless advocate. We appreciate you. She's been a fearless advocate for our youth. Really, really appreciate her. Tried to get her to stay. But I understand you want to do some other things now, but I know you'll still be here fighting for our kids. And so we appreciate your work. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for having us here this evening. Thank you to all of the CPS staff, the board, all of you. Ms. Jones, thank you very much for your years of dedicated service. Thank you, Superintendent Wright, and everyone here, the city staff. Collaboration builds bridges. And we can not believe that we are at a time anywhere in this society where we don't need bridge builders. We don't need collaboration. No man is an island. And the island mindset is what gets us into the big problems that we're facing right now. I know it all. I'm the expert. I know what I'm doing and all the other nonsense that you hear from time to time. But here in the city of Cincinnati, we have to make sure that we're laser focused on hearing everybody, even those that we don't agree with. We have to be open to hear, because sometime when you open your ears, it opens your mind to a different mindset that you never really thought about. So I greatly appreciate this opportunity. Let's continue to be collaborative. Let's continue to listen, and not just listen, hear other people, even if they don't sound, look, and believe like us. And that's the only way the needle here in this city is going to keep moving forward. I think we're moving in a great direction. I think Cincinnati has amazing potential because we've got amazing people. But we can't shut the door or close our mind or our eyes to things that don't sound and don't appear to be the way we see it. So thank you very much. Greatly appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Dr. Moffitt?
So I just want to make sure that I thank publicly our administrative team, the treasurer, the superintendent, all of their staff, the city staff, the board members and the council members. And I really, they're not going to say this, but we ran 2 years ago on a slate, many of us, to say that we wanted to work together, the city and CPS. We were intentionally attempting to connect the city and CPS for the betterment of our students. They came together last year and said, let's do it. we still bugged each other this year to maintain that promise. And so I just think it speaks to some of our council members are not here that made that agreement as well. And some of our board members are not here that aligned as well. But we are really diligently working for every one of our 36,000 students, our staff, our families, and for the citizens of Cincinnati. So thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for coming and for commenting and for being engaged. If someone is not here that you think needs to see this, please share the online version. Please share the city cable link with them so that they can hear what's going on and that they can see that we have lots of work to do, but we cannot do it alone. So I just want to make sure that I say thank you. To Board Member Jones, she has 108 days. We have a counter, and so she has 108 days left to work for the betterment of our students, and we're going to hold her to every one of those days. Thank you so much.
That's right. Okay, well, let's have comments from Superintendent Ironetta Wright. And then we'll have our President, Ben Lindy, close us out.
So thank you so much, and thank you for the time. Thank you to our Board Member Moffitt for making certain that there was a level of organization and input from our team as well. And collectively, you see on the screen amazing futures in the making. And so I, on behalf of Cincinnati Public Schools, would like to thank the community for your continued support of our students and the work that we're doing in CPS. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, President Lindy.
I have no further comments to add other than thank everyone for their time this evening. Thank you again, Dr. Moffitt, Vice Mayor Kearney. Look forward to making this a continued tradition. Thank you.
And with that, this meeting is adjourned.